2 months had passed since we last spoke. Our last conversation wasn't a pleasant one. I was mad at her for ever thinking that I could ever settle. How dare she made me fall for her only to give me the deputy seat. She did everything right though, I won't lie. No wrong step. She took such great care of me, became everything I ever wanted in a man. She made me depend on her so much. All I had to do was just to let her. The few weeks her and I had before she threw the bomb on me, she became the best part of me. I hated how quickly I had fallen for her. From our very first phone call, I had already made up my mind that it was her I wanted. I loved the person she was turning me into. She was changing me. Actually, she had changed me, even though I only noticed the changes after I broke things off with her. Although, technically, there was nothing to break off because we were not really a thing. We were just a potential, and almost. I get goosebumps just thinking about her. I could still remember her scent. She had a peculiar one, not from any perfume really. It wasn't an artificial smell. It was natural, like herbs, jasmine maybe, but not really. Could be leaning a little on lavender, but not particularly. I couldn't really tell, but it was soft, exactly the way I'd imagine an Egyptian princess would smell like, which was a real irony for the masculinity she expectorates. One morning I woke up from a dream that got me really shook. In the dream, I received a call from her number telling me that the owner of the phone had passed on. I woke up crying like an idiot. And at that moment, I knew that I did not want to exist in a world that she didn't. This dream could have been serving as a sign that if I didn't fix things with her, I could find myself in a world that didn't have her. She already was not in my life, but I was consoled by the fact that I could bump into her anywhere and anytime. But if she had to be no more, she'd only live in my dreams and memories. I knew right there that my principles were to be bent a little. I wanted her in my life. I didn't care how anymore. As much as I was to take the secondary seat, she always made me feel like the primary. I've never had to share a partner before, at least not knowingly. Of course, there would be a lot to discuss and rules to be set. I should not expect 100% of her. I knew that, but was 100% expected from me. Also, would I be allowed to branch out too? Should I be expecting the 4th edition? I mean, if she wanted me, she could want another. Would I be in a relationship with just Phelisa or her and her girlfriend? These questions kept popping in my head as I dialed and hung up her number before it rang. I needed the right words for this. It had been 2 months already and I didn't know if she felt the same way. She could have found somebody else already. I mean, it took her a day to get me anyway. What was a mere 2 months? I probably dialed her number more than 10 times and hanging up because I still didn't know what to say to her. A lot of pride had to be sorted for this. The prey had turned into the hunter now. Tables turned. I couldn't. I just couldn't. I decided to freshen up before making bad decisions and maybe thinking this through. It was a Saturday morning, so I didn't have work that day. I got out of bed to wash my face and brush my teeth. The whole time I was brushing my teeth, I was looking at myself in the bathroom mirror right on top of my basin, wondering if I really wanted to be a part of this equation. 2 people together were called a couple. What do we call 3 people together? I was going through so many emotions at once. I woke up sad from the dream, then in love from thinking about Phelisa, and then confused from all these questions that actually made me sad. Because I knew Phelisa didn't come alone. She was a package. And never in my wildest dream would I ever solely have her. I decided I was going to call her and I'll just try swimming once I've jumped in. I will find the right words when I hear her voice. After my freshening up, I jumped back into my bed and unlocked my phone to make a call. It was as if she knew, as if she was in my head and knew my thoughts. Maybe we had the same dream. As a result, we both had the same thought. It was an SMS from her that read, "I still think about you." I remember I pulled the pillow I had my head on and pressed it on my face so that I did not alarm any neighbors with my screams. I let out a scream that released a lot of tension and let in a great amount of joy. I was so happy. My heart was at its purest. Wow. A mere "I still think about you" did a lot to my mood. But now to respond. How to respond and not sound like I'd been waiting for this. Or maybe I shouldn't respond too soon. That would show desperation, and I was not about to show weakness. But then again, I was about to make the first step and call her a few minutes ago. However, this could have been the universe's way of telling me that I should remain in my prey corner. I was not meant to hunt anyway. I suck greatly at it. What am I doing delaying my response? I'm not 16. I'm old, and at my age, childishness and pride have no room in a relationship. But also, she just said she thinks about me. Nothing about wanting me back or anything. I might be reading a lot into this. Now my worry was, what exactly was she thinking about? I could ask her, but do I really want to know? It might not be good. The last time we saw each other, it wasn't pleasant at all. She might have been thinking about the harsh words I threw her way. I regret a little what I said to her, but I was justified. And that's how I managed to sleep all those nights, okay? With the comfort that she deserved it. Even though I'm not a bad person and would never, under normal circumstances, repeat what I said to her to the next person. But she pushed me to the limit. Now I couldn't stop thinking about that day, how it started so romantic only to end up a huge ass mess. As my mind was here and there with thoughts all around her, another text came through. Have dinner with me tonight. I promise you will not regret it. I couldn't say no. This was exactly what I wanted. To see her again and just be wrapped in her soft, warm arms. But even if I didn't want to, chances are I would have agreed to the dinner anyway because it's her. She had this thing about her that was very commanding. One could not say no to her. There was never an opportunity to reject anyway because she did not ask. She commanded. I guess this is a great characteristic to have as an entrepreneur. That's how you score business. And women, clearly. Yes. If ever I had any doubt that Phelisa bewitched me, this moment right here was confirmation. I responded to the text with a yes followed by a full stop to indicate that I had nothing more to add to my yes. My yes was complete and nobody could convince me otherwise. While I was convincing myself that I was right to respond so vaguely, another text came through with a smiley emoji. Pick you up at 7. Another command. Even though I must admit it was a huge turn on. It's what drew me to her. I did not need to respond to that text because it was straightforward, and I knew she was not expecting a reply anyway. That was her, confident in the decisions she made for others. She was borderline a dictator, which was something I used to convince myself I had a problem with but never did or said anything about it. I spent the whole day in bed binging on Orange is the New Black. I had just discovered it when I first started with Phelisa, and a friend of mine suggested it to me. She said since this was to be my life, I should see that dating a woman was not just a slumber party that parents allowed. I couldn't watch it while I was still with Phelisa because we spent most of our time together. And if we were not together, I was either at work or sleeping. And after Phelisa and I had a fallout, I didn't want to watch it because there was no point anymore. I was never going to have my parents-approved slumber parties. As I was watching the series in bed, lazing around and only getting out to make a snack or use the ladies, I was fantasizing about Phelisa. I was already thinking about how many kids we were going to have and who would be carrying most of those kids. I was already thinking about how I was going to come out to my friends and family and introduce her as my lover. I even thought about how I was going to share chores with Dinewa and how we were to be best friends. It was crazy, I know. My mind was ahead of me. This was what hearing from her did. The hope it resurrected. 5 p.m. came and it was time to start getting ready for the big date. I had to give myself 2 hours because Phelisa was very strict with time. She was never late for anything. She was big on time is money. And I guess it worked for her because she was worth more than a lot. I took a quick shower because I knew I would be wasting time picking out an outfit than doing anything else. While in the shower, I heard my phone ring, but I did not answer because I figured I would return the call when I was done. The missed call was from Phelisa. It was one missed call. She would never call a person more than once if there was no answer. She believed that if the person was not ignoring you, Then they would return the call. I called her back straight after my shower, still wrapped in a towel. I was at your place. What a Phelisa way to answer a phone. I last spoke to her a little over 2 months ago, and hearing her voice now just put me in a mini coma. It's only 5:30. I said to her. You did say 7, didn't you? Yeah, I did, but I wanted to drop off your dress. She said, so much was going on in my head. Why would she get me a dress? Does she think I do not have dresses, or does she not like my fashion taste? For what? I asked her with concern because we did not discuss her getting me a dress. There was a long pause between my question and her answering it, which she still didn't. I'm outside your door, she said, and my heart almost jumped out of my mouth. I was still wrapped in a towel, fresh from the shower, not ready to be seen by the world, let alone the one woman I feel so strongly for. I hung up the phone in panic. My heart was racing because of the kind of person Phelisa was. I would enter the night with my self-esteem on the floor if I let her. But I quickly collected myself because I was done trembling at her presence. I walked over to the door and took a deep breath before I could open the door to what God himself created to torture me. Her scent got blown in by the wind. I wasn't at all alarmed that she got through the security at my complex because the few weeks we were together, she managed to buy all of them. There she was, a god in a human form. It was obvious she had been spending most of her days under weights because her arms were serious guns, AK-47s. There was a line that seemed like it was separating the front side of the arm from the back side. Very toned. She was wearing a plain white V-neck t-shirt that displayed a little bit of her cleavage, which I know for sure she tried to hide very hard. She was a D cup and she hated it, but I loved it. Even though I knew not what to do with it because I never had to play with breasts that weren't on my body before. Come to think of it, I never played with any at all because every time her and I got intimate, her sports bra never came off. There she was, wearing long navy blue track pants that were hugging her curves. Not too tight, but enough to realize it was a woman in them. She had gained weight. Okay, maybe not weight, but a lot of muscle. Her body was more rugby player than bodybuilder. Oof. I didn't say anything. I could not find my words. She didn't say anything either. I'm not quite sure if she was as speechless about me as I was about her. I unlocked my butler door and she started walking in, staring me dead in the eye, which forced me to take steps backwards, looking at her too. I was not about to lose this staring contest. I walked backwards till my kitchen counter stopped me. Right there, she held my waist and pulled me towards her. My blood rushed to my head from her touch that I fainted. What an embarrassing way to announce to her that she makes my world go round. My body respected her so much. It responded to her without her putting in any effort. I regained my consciousness in bed a few minutes after her very effective touch. She was so calm. Like she was used to what just happened. Like this was the effect she had on people. So she understood my reaction. She asked if I was feeling better and I just nodded in embarrassment. I was ready for her to leave and we just canceled this date that was supposed to happen in an hour. I had a valid reason anyway and she had just witnessed it. She took out her phone from the pocket of her pants, dialed a number and placed the phone on her ear. Hi babe, I'll not be coming back tonight, okay? Ntabi isn't feeling well. Okay then. Love you too. Bye. She then hung up and came towards me confidently. I could not believe what I had just witnessed. It was very clear that I was the only one taken aback by what just happened. She was not moved at all by what she had just done. As a matter of fact, if I raised it up, I know she'd be surprised by my reaction. I did not ask any question. I knew she'd tell the truth, and I had no energy to hear how I deserved to know the truth, because this is exactly what made us fall apart the last time. She ordered in and we spent the rest of the night in bed, barely spoke. I never knew her to be a woman of a few words. Somehow I caved in and I agreed to date her, but this time it was different. It was more obvious now that I was sharing her. At first, I barely picked up that there could be anyone in her life, but now there were signs everywhere. There were more calls now when I'd be with her, some initiated by her. I had to understand. When I agreed to this, that was exactly what I was signing up for. All calls ended with a declaration of their love for each other. It broke me every time, and somehow 2 minutes after the call, I would forget it ever happened. It was as if she had a remote of me that she could control with her mind. One day, about 2 months into the relationship, she told me something I'd been dreading to hear from her. Something I'd always been waiting for but hoped the day never came. Dineo knew of me and I knew of her, but we had never met before, and Phelisa thought it was time that changed. She suggested we met in public, but due to the nature of the relationship, Dineo thought meeting at home made more sense. That's what Phelisa told me. I had no opinion in this matter clearly. They discussed it and concluded all on their own without getting my feelings about all of this. It was clear how the relationship was gonna run. When Phelisa mentioned it to me, she wasn't asking. She told me she'd be picking me up that night for dinner with Dineo. She said all of this while we were brushing our teeth after a heavenly morning glory. I didn't respond or give a reaction, and likewise, she didn't require either. The whole day at work, I cracked my brain trying to come up with any reason why I couldn't make it to dinner, but there was no reason enough. Phelisa mentioned Dineo would be cooking, so I did not need to worry about food. I'm quite a picky eater, and I was worried that Dineo would cook food I didn't eat, and I'd be forced to eat it just to be nice. I tried to send Phelisa texts now and then to remind her of the food I didn't eat, and she kept responding with the same response: "Babe, you need to relax." Since Dineo would be cooking, what was expected of me? Was I going to get there and act like it's also my girlfriend's house or a guest? Since Dineo was going to cook, I had to make up with a great selection of wine. I decided on the most expensive bottle of wine at the liquor store. I didn't know if Dineo drank alcohol because Phelisa never told me anything about her except for the fact that she existed. Phelisa had been sober for 2 years, but I did indulge in wine every now and then when I'd be with her. She didn't mind, and I didn't know if the same was to be assumed for Dineo. I boldly took that bottle of wine, and if no one was to drink it, it would mean more for me. Heaven knows that this night needed all the alcohol I could get in the store. I didn't even know how to dress. We were not going to a public place, so I didn't have to be formal. But also, it wasn't just going to be me and Phelisa. I needed to impress. It wasn't a competition really, but I still subconsciously needed to have the upper hand. They were an already established couple, so things happened organically between them, while on the other hand, Phelisa and I were still establishing ourselves in this relationship. I still chose my outfits carefully when we'd meet. I still cleaned under the bed when she would come over. I still matched my underwear. I still cared about keeping the honeymoon face. That night, I decided to keep it simple with blue jeans, a white plain t-shirt, and glossy nude-coated sharp-toe leather heels. Phelisa always begged me to be in heels when we'd go out, so I knew my choice of shoes would impress her. Even though my outfit was super simple, I overcompensated with a very big leather handbag that matched my shoes. Phelisa got it for me the same day she begged me to wear the same shoes. She insisted I deserved a matching handbag. You see, this is exactly what I liked about her. The bag wasn't filled with much, but it made me feel good. I felt like it was big enough to hide everything I was feeling for the night. I had a car, but Phelisa always insisted that she picks me up every time we'd go anywhere. I had given up on fighting it. But on this night, I felt the need to drive myself so that if anything happened, getting to my place would be solely dependent on me. I didn't know how the night was going to turn out, but I didn't have a good feeling about it. And as you can guess, I lost this fight too. She picked me up from work and drove me to my place to freshen up. She seemed quite nervous from the way she was running her mouth. It made me uneasy. She would make jokes that were not really funny and laughed like she was forcing it. It was an uncomfortable ride from work to my place and my place to their home. I only knew she lived in Houghton but had never been there before or seen the house. The ride from my place in Centurion to Houghton felt like 2 minutes. Time somehow went very fast, like it knew I needed it to pause a bit and it was my enemy. The closer and closer we got to Houghton, the further down my heart went. I needed to pee so bad. I was pressed. My bladder was failing me. The prayers I was saying in my heart I had never said before. I had even forgot I was in a car with a person because I was just in my world. I was more worried about the impression I would make on Dineo. Would she find me worthy to co-love with her? It felt like an audition. I lost my train of thought when the car engine stopped and Phelisa said the word I was dreading to hear the whole night. Baby, we here. Why did I not begin this party at home with a few shots of vodka? I thought as I dragged myself out of the car, trying to delay by checking all seats to see if I was not leaving anything behind. The house was humongous. They clearly were very well off. I always knew Phelisa was very comfortable in the pocket, but I never thought 6 bedrooms much. Dineo must have heard the car drive in because she opened the door for us even before we could approach it, and what I saw was not of this planet. I'm not quite sure if my reality was blurred a little or Dineo really did have a halo. Must be an illusion created by the all-white interior of the house plus lighting. Shoo! Hi! She said with the purest eyes ever. Her hi was so genuine. It carried so much love and warmth, and immediately I fell in love with her. She approached me with her arms stretched out to make room for me to fit in for a hug. She smelled so good. I have this thing about scents. It really says a lot about a person. I believe that how you do anything is how you do everything, and how you pick your scent is definitely how you pick everything. The hug was tight and warm, very welcoming. Phelisa had the biggest smile on her face, like we had just given her the best gift ever. It was like she was watching her work of art come to life, like she had just introduced Mars to Pluto and they made magic. Dineo was wearing a maxi white boob tube dress with simple sandals. All I could think of was how drop-dead gorgeous she was. Her beauty was classic. Dimples and beauty spots, freckled nose and big eyes, long relaxed hair that seemed very healthy. The first words that parted my lips were, "Oh my gosh, she was so gorgeous." She let out a chuckle and her lips curved into a smile that exposed the golden star on her bottom side tooth. "Aw, you cute. She's cute," she said, looking at Phelisa but pointing at me. I stretched out my hand to give Dineo the wine I brought with me. She took a glance at it and thanked me. Phelisa put her arm across my back and led me into the house. This got me a little uncomfortable because I felt like she should be more loving to Dineo than me. I felt like Dineo should take precedence in everything, especially on this night. We walked in the house and Phelisa pulled out a chair for me on an already prepared table. Dineo had really gone all out for this night. There were long silver candle holders with lit candles, black serviettes covering the bronze cutlery decorating the white oval plates. Their table was too long for this night though. I was somewhat hoping that we would sit on the couches. A less formal setup, you know? Everything was already on the table, from food to drinks. I got seated across Dineo and Phelisa sat next to me. "You really know your wine, huh? I'm impressed. We might just get along," Dineo said as she reached for a corkscrew to open it. She and I were the only ones drinking the wine, and Phelisa was drinking chamomile tea. The night started off a little shaky, more from my side because I felt guilty. The whole time I wanted to apologize to Dineo for ever letting her woman fall in love with me because she was just so awesome. But even without me saying anything, she kept assuring me that it was okay. She fully understood She told me that they had never brought a third person into their relationship before, but when they started, Phelisa did put it down that she was a polygamous lover. She had always been waiting for Phelisa to come home with someone, but after 6 years, she started thinking that Phelisa might have been lying about the whole thing or just wanted to make an excuse early for when she does cheat. She further told me that she learned of my existence when I rejected Phelisa's proposal. She told me it broke her heart at first because Phelisa was genuinely heartbroken and she did not understand what it was I gave Phelisa that she didn't. It was at that point that I picked up a hint of hurt from her tone. The whole time Phelisa was not saying anything. She just let us bond. We lost track of time and before we knew it, it was midnight. Phelisa suggested I sleep over and she will drive me to my place very early in the morning so I changed for work. At that point, I was too drunk to reject the offer. She slept with me in one of the guest rooms. That night I slept in the guest room and the next day it was my room. Even though it was not official, I had moved in. I'd been sleeping their home, which they refer to as our home, which still didn't flow as smooth from my tongue since our very first dinner. Phelisa would drive me to my place to get more clothes, but somehow they never made it back to my place. Dinner would include my laundry whenever she would do everyone else's. She was also the cook in the house because she did not have a 9-to-5 like I did. Phelisa retired her 2 years into the relationship and she'd been trying to convince me to leave my job too. She wanted to take care of me because I always had something to complain about from the office and she hated it. There was no day that would go by where I wouldn't consider it. The edge was much stronger on Monday mornings, but the difference between Dineo and I was that she was a trust fund kid and worth a lot even without Phelisa. I needed my job to get by, so if Phelisa had to leave me, I'd need to start from fresh. Things were still pretty awkward between Dineo and I. Whenever Phelisa would leave us together, there would always be awkward silence and conversations with dead-end responses. From her mostly. Phelisa alternated between our rooms every now and then. Some days she would spend the whole week with me and the other days I would only have her in my bed once in 2 weeks. The schedule was random. Not a schedule really. Just constant cross fingers that night would be my night. We lived happily awkward for a good 6 months. One Saturday morning, Phelisa had an early meeting, so I was left with Dineo in the house. I dreaded coming out of my room because I was not in the mood for awkwardness, but I needed to eat and go run some errands. I got out of my room around past 10 and she was sitting in the dining room reading a book with a cup of tea next to her. I was still in my gown. Morning. I greeted her without looking her way, hoping she didn't make small, unnecessary talk. Oh, hey, I was about to come wake you up. You must have been really tired, huh? This was weird. So many words from her mouth to my ears without Phelisa's presence. Oh yeah, it was a long week, I responded. At this point, it was all getting too weird, too quick. So I just poured cereal in a bowl, hoping to finish fast and run to eat in my room. As I was pouring milk in my cereal, Dineo got up to make room to the kitchen where I was. She stood by my side and faced away from the kitchen counter where I was working on. Can we try not to be weird? We need to find a way to get along, you know. We share a woman, for God's sake. I don't see why we can't do away with this tension between us. Please? I was shook. I was shook by what she was saying because all the negative energy was coming from her side. I agree, I said with a fake smile on my face. Then she gave me a peck on the lips and went to continue reading her book. I was confused. She kissed me, and it might have meant less than I took it, but my mind was running wild. I respected her for taking the first step in repairing our relationship though, so I decided to eat in the dining room where she was. You know what? Let's have a girls' night out. I'll book the spa, she said with a very enthusiastic tone, and I just nodded in agreement because I had food in my mouth. We had our first ever real conversation and we both enjoyed it. almost felt normal. We went out that night and got drunk from the champagne we started drinking from the minute we got to the spa. Dinero called Phelisa to come pick us up because none of us could drive in that state. Phelisa was a little irritated by how drunk and loud we were the whole ride back home. You'd reckon she'd be happy we were finally getting along. But we were too drunk to care. We got home and Dinero started kissing Phelisa right when we stepped in the house. Who? Okay, now it was getting awkward. I'd never seen them kiss before. I didn't know where to look. I tried to make my way to my room because I was not about to watch what was about to happen. Dinero grabbed my hand while still kissing Phelisa. Then she stopped kissing her and started kissing me. A few seconds into the kiss, she pulled back. She then pushed me to Phelisa. Phelisa didn't know what to do. Phelisa didn't know what was going on from the look on her face, and she asked, "Babe, what are you doing?" Drunk Dinero answered with no care in the world, "Oh, come on, babe. You can't tell me you don't want this." Before anyone could say anything, she kissed me, and this time no one stopped anyone. We all just went with the flow. The next morning, Phelisa got up first because she had yet another early morning. Dinero and I were not about to get any time soon because hangover had us regretting our entire existence. My sleep got disturbed by the weight of an arm on my waist and a body spooning me. I opened my eyes and realized I slept in their room. Since I moved there, I'd never been in that room. It was huge. Well, morning, you wild thing. Dinero's voice. How the hell did she know I was up already? I was facing away from her. She started kissing my back and my body just went into total shock. Last night I was under the influence, so it might have been easier, but this morning I was sober as a judge. I know we had engaged in a threesome the previous night, but I didn't know that was a license for her and I to get intimate without Phelisa. Hey. I said with a very sleepy tone just to hint to her that I was still in my sleep and she should just stop. But I was too late because her hand was already sliding into my panties and I was not about to stop her. Not after the progress that we made on our date. It was really awkward afterwards, at least from my side. I felt like we had just cheated on Phelisa. But she was a bird of joy. No regret whatsoever. She even suggested I joined her in the shower. This was the epitome of when the cat isn't home, the mice play. About 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday after work, Phelisa dropped me off at home and had to rush somewhere. Dinero and I were still very friendly towards each other. She had even started calling me babe. But the babe with an undertone of a platonic friend, not a lover. I walked in and I was welcomed home with a glass of Chardonnay. She seemed rather nervous, like she had something to say but didn't know how to. Okay, what's going on? I said to her, and before she could respond, she took a huge gulp from her glass and said, "I think I'm falling for you." My jaw dropped to the ground when I heard from behind me a voice that said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" It was Phelisa's voice. At this point, I knew someone would be dying and the odds were leaning towards me. "Babe, I thought you had to rush somewhere," I said to Phelisa when her jawline grew stronger from clenching her teeth. Fear filled me. "Oh, stop it, Phelisa. How many times did you think I would fuck her before I fall for her?" Dinero said that and I just wanted to die because it was obvious that this bitch had just poured paraffin directly into an already flaming fire. Okay, whoa, wait now. I tried to intervene when Phelisa raised her voice and threw her phone on the couch. "Oh my gosh! You fucked her?" Was I not supposed to? You the one who brought her in our home, Phelisa. Dineo responded with tears already filling her eyes. "Woman, you're mine," Phelisa said to her. Yo, the low blows I was getting from this conversation, I was not even a part of it. "And you're not mine. You don't belong to me. I don't have you, Phelisa." Dineo said, and even I felt that in my heart. I could already see where this conversation was going. I watched them exchange words angrily, talking about me like I wasn't even there. I then realized that I never did fit in this equation. I never was welcomed, at least not by Dineo. They were lost in each other that they didn't even notice me sneak to my room. I could still hear them bickering and throwing my name around when I came to the conclusion that I couldn't handle the hurt anymore. Dineo was saying things she had obviously been harboring since I came into the picture. I decided to pack an overnight bag and go to my place just to give them space, you know. They didn't even notice me sneak out too. I got into my car and broke down. I hoped Phelisa would come out, but the 10 minutes I was in the car, I was in my own company. No one was comforting me. I was hurt and alone. I drove home and I got there. I checked my phone to see if there were any missed calls or texts, but nothing. My absence was clearly not felt. A day went by, no call. A week went by, no text. A month went by and I started to miss the good clothes that I left at their house. I couldn't call them. My pride wouldn't let me. It has been 6 months now and the only time I hear from Phelisa is in my dream.